What's with shows today and just giving me anxiety or just depression? This episode of Mob Psycho 100 got really real. I think all of us in one point of our lives have probably went through what Reigan has went through in this episode. The feeling of loneliness, the thought that you probably will never have someone leave you and like you will always be with them, and then always putting yourself on a pedestal, or thinking that you're the best or you know the best way about things, and then it all comes crashing down. It's just this was a really good character analysis for Reigan and showing kind of who he is and what he's been doing in his life. Kind of the good and the bad. See, from the very beginning of Mob Psycho, going back to Season 1, we knew he was a con man. We knew he was an individual that was scummy. He was shady, scummy, and he was technically taking advantage of people to make a quick buck. But at the same time, when you look at other things, he is a good man. He does try to help people. I mean, sometimes he doesn't even take pay for it because he is a good man. Like, even if he doesn't get rid of, like, spirits or ghosts or whatever, he gives them massages, he gives them therapy. He is a helpful dude. He isn't downright an awful person. But at the end of the day, Reigan is someone that can be a little bit cynical. He can be someone that thinks he's the best, or, he thinks he knows everything or whatever. But in reality, he really doesn't. And, we can kind of go back to his roots. The start of this episode shows where it all began. When he got his own place, when he decided to get his job as a psychic and help people, he started everything. And seeing kind of this side to Reigan in this episode, showing that he isn't just a good guy, but also a bad guy, it was very human. Because that is how everybody is. Everybody has good and bad sides. Everybody has things that, people will like about you and dislike about you. And in a lot of ways, the best way to kind of summarize Reigan in this episode, he's a hypocrite. Because he has helped out Mob a lot. He has helped him through his social issues. He's been able to read him as a person. And, he's helped him. I mean, since Season 1 to where he's at now. I mean, let's look at the whole Mogami arc and how he believed in Mob and was helping him out. I mean, Reigan was a really good dude in that moment. But this episode shows that Reigan, even though he has been very helpful, he has been using Mob. And he realized in that moment how dependent he was of him, but also how when Mob was no longer dependent of him, then he is just out of luck. And he goes back to zero again. And he has to forge a path on his own. And seeing how he was so sure of himself that Mob would come back and he would never leave him was sad, because when he tries to play it off, he's like, oh, he'll come back and all that, he'll come back in no time. He felt, so sure of himself, like, Mob needs me, and it showed that Reigan, as an individual, he never believed that Mob could probably make friends. That's what he truly believed, or he wanted Mob just to depend on him. That's what he wanted, and he never really felt like Mob could ever depend on anyone else or meet someone to really help him out, other people. And he was never really seeing the bigger picture here, what Mob was slowly doing throughout the journey of Season 1 and half of Season 2. And the realization when Mob was walking with friends without Reigan even there helping him out made him realize where he was. He had no one. Mob, which was someone that was socially awkward, someone that needed to somehow break out of the ice where he was at and try to form relationships, he finally did that. He's finally done that. And Reigan, even though it seems like he knows everything, he's a good guy, even bad in some ways, and he seems like everything's going right in a lot of ways, he realized he has nothing. The only thing he had was Mob. And now that Mob is gone, he has his psychic business, but he realized after everything that he's been doing with Mob, not having him anymore, basically just like, what's the point? And, he can't really do what he's been doing. And it's even sadder when he realizes that nobody really cares about him. Like, when he goes to Friendbook, which is a knockoff of Facebook, and he's looking through his notifications, he's like, oh, it's been a while since I've got to reply to my friends and all that. And he looks, and no one's messaged him for a long time. it's sad, because in that moment you realized how lonely he was, how he had nothing, nobody cared about him, and the only one that really messaged him was his mother, which in turn was just someone that was just like, hey, you need to hurry up and get a relationship, you need to have, family going and all that, do something with your life, are you still doing that shady business, it just, everything came hitting him at once, a reality check, in that, what has he been doing all these years with his life? Has he done anything? Has he accomplished anything? Yes, he may be, in a psychic business, and he does know that Mob has helped people, but technically at the end of the day, he hasn't really had a major impact. It's mainly Mob that's been doing this. And he hasn't really made a name for himself, he hasn't done anything, and so that moment when you see him looking at the computer, and it's a really solid part of this episode, when there's no music, nothing, and you just hear just the clicking, or just the computer running sound as he's just looking, and you just don't see his face, you don't see his face at all, but you see through the computer screen just his hand movements and all that, and you're like, man, this is kind of relatable, and I think many can relate to that in some shape or form to what Reigan was going through. And it's even sadder, like I said, it was his birthday in this episode, and he had no one. No one cared, no one wished him a happy birthday, nothing. And when he goes to a bar alone expecting maybe someone to, be kind of like a friend, it didn't happen either. He realized nobody was there. He was always the one being used. The people that he thought was potentially friends there weren't even his friends. They were just trying to use and do pyramid schemes or whatever and take advantage of him. It's relatable. I can relate to that. It's just such a real episode. And I think that's what makes Mob Psycho 100 such a good series, because it deals with so many social problems, or the fundamentals of how we need to connect with people to be able to function. And it's crazy that a series that's about psychics, powers, crazy power, and all that is more real in terms of humanity, just getting the feelings across to people, than in almost any other show I've seen in a long while. And I think that's why I keep coming back to this series, why I love Mob Psycho, why many are just such a big fan, and why many say that Mob Psycho, in a lot of ways, is probably One's best work, better than One Punch Man. And don't get me wrong, I love One Punch Man. It's a good freaking series. Artwork, story, I love it. But there's something just about characters in this series that really just stand out. And you can see One's, writing and how he's went so far with One Punch Man really shines in Mob Psycho 100. He really goes down a different path, and he demonstrates his ability as a writer, that he's just grown so much. He is no longer what he was when he first started One Punch Man. And even at the beginning of Mob Psycho either. You can just see his growth as a writer. But okay, what else to really talk about? I guess, let's talk about Mob for a second. So, Mob, he really made a wonderful group of friends. And I'm just so proud of him. I really am. We knew that he had a group to hang out with, but that moment in this episode when he's hanging out and, he's about to go to karaoke, celebrate people's birthday parties, I'm like, good on you, Mob. I'm really happy to see that. I'm glad to see my boy, growing up, having friends, being able to just spend time with people, have a afternoon activity without having to go home by himself, or, even though it's nice to see him hanging out with Reigan, I'm glad he has friends, just a normal group to hang out with. And when Reigan called him, it's like, hey, get down here and all that. Oh, you don't have any friends. Oh, they're using you or whatever. It was, like, very hypocritical of Reigan to say you basically, they're taking advantage of you. In reality, Reigan was doing that. And Mob's reaction and how shook up he was, his emotions and all of that, and then he still followed through. He's like, hey guys, I gotta leave you and all that. I gotta go help out Reigan because, he needs my help. And as we know, the reason why Reigan needs Mob's help is because he has no psychic abilities. And that's why he called him. And even though Mob doesn't know that, it's messed up because we as the audience know. And if Reigan actually was a psychic, he wouldn't need to ruin Mob's day, taking him away from his friends that he finally got after so much hard work, getting himself out there, pushing himself. Reigan, was trying to slowly kind of drag him away from that. And Reigan wasn't purposely doing it, obviously, but the point still stands, is that Mob has tried so hard, and Reigan has helped him too, and then he was trying to undo that. So there's just so many emotions in this episode. I think Mob, he's at that point now to where he doesn't need to be as dependent on one person, like Reigan, and Reigan needs to realize that he shouldn't be so dependent on Mob. He needs to be able to be his own man. He needs to be able to have, other people that, surrounding him besides just one central person. And it's kind of interesting that maybe Mob, as an individual, is probably going to have to give Reigan advice. Maybe social advice. Because he, like I said, Reigan doesn't have anything, or anyone. It's crazy. So yeah, I think that's about it when it comes to this episode. Let me know your thoughts. How do you feel about this week's episode of Mob Psycho? Did you think that this was good deconstruction of Reigan as a character, just showing who he really is? And, even though he is a con man and he's been a good man too, it shows the good and the bad of his character. Do you think this is a good character analysis? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think this is better than last week's episode? Which, in terms of animation, I don't think it is. But story-wise, in some ways, I think it does beat last week's episode. But okay, I love you guys. You have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like. And if you want to get notified for whenever I upload a video, please click the bell icon down below. Because for some reason, even if you subscribe, you don't always get notified. So if you want to get notified, please hit that bell icon down below, because for some reason, subscribe button doesn't work anymore. Now, also, just one other thing, even if you don't want to hit it for me, at least hit it for the YouTubers you do care about, because it does help us out a lot, because, like I said, subscribe button doesn't work. And with that, I love you guys. Have a wonderful day or night, wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.